Hi, and welcome to The Insiders by Durham Lane, where we get perspectives from industry thought leaders about strategies that are unifying marketing and sales cycles to help accelerate growth inside your world.
Welcome to the Insiders Sales and Marketing Podcast. I'm Simon Hazeldine. I'm a sales transformation strategist and sales performance consultant, helping my clients get more sales more often with more margin. I'm also a keynote speaker and author of 7 books on sales and negotiation. I'm your host, along with my co-host, the one and only Richard Lane, who is co-founder of Durham Lane. Durham Lane are an inside sales partner that help businesses to grow their revenue through an integrated sales and marketing methodology. Richard, you have the privilege of introducing our guest for this episode, so over to you, sir.
Great, thank you, Simon, and wonderful to be back in the Insiders studio. Really thrilled today to be joined by Darren Cassidy. Darren is the Managing Director for UK and Ireland and heads up the services business in EMEA for Xerox. Huge global corporation. Really thrilled to have Darren on the show, and I think we'll get some wonderful insight from today's episode. So, Simon, back to you to get us started.
Wonderful. So, Darren, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the Insiders. Great to have you with us. What we normally do is just ask our guests to kind of introduce themselves to our listeners. So, give us a little bit of background and how you came to be in the role that you're in currently.
Great. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Really looking forward to the conversation we're going to have. So I've been at Xerox for 31 years. One company. I'm not sure the generation of today are going to do that. But in that time, I've had about 17 different jobs. I calculated the other day. I joined as a new business salesperson, and I'm having a wonderful career, getting incredible opportunities to work in our UK company, our European company, our EMEA. I've just come back from 5 years living in New York, where I run our channels business for North America, and now back actually running the UK and looking after our services business for EMEA. So it's been 31 years, 17 jobs, and an ever-changing journey that I'm still on.
Amazing.
Wonderful. Thank you for letting us know what you've been doing for the last kind of 31 years. In our pre-interview session, we discussed leading the change from technology to a technology-led services at Xerox. And this required what you described as adaptive leadership. We'll be really interested in, your definition of adaptive leadership and why you think it's so important.
Yeah, and I think that was one example that we talked about, with the backdrop being, change. 31 years in Xerox, I've seen so much change, and yet there's so much change ahead of us, and we're in the middle of a lot of change. So the example you gave was one, but I think it's really important as leaders in our business, we are open to change, we embrace change. And part of that is adapting, moving, being agile, listening, changing. And really helping our teams move through the ambiguity that some people can see in change. As we go through these different cycles of change, it's interesting to see different characters, personalities, and styles emerge. And as I said, adaptive leadership is one that I've really embraced as a necessity, not just in our company, but I think for everybody in the modern world.
And change is, John Cotter from Harvard, I think, would say something like 75% of corporate change initiatives fail. What would be your magic secret sauce, would you say, for change success, as a kind of a subsidiary question to the first one?
So first of all, Simon, I'm no guru like you. I haven't written books, so I'm just giving you my layman's opinion. But you know what? I think the most important thing about change is mindset. How you embrace change, how your teams embrace change, how we feel about that is really, really important, and actually sets the tone for so much. But I also believe that part of our leadership role is about producing and driving energy into the business, energy through that change process. And I also believe that energy flows where our attention goes. If you think about that outside of work, if you place your attention on an area, you can produce energy and get things to move. So through change, I think it's important all the time, but through change, it's really important that we're very, very clear where we want our attention as a leader, where we want our attention as teams, and where we want our attention as a business, so that we can drive energy through the right areas and keep things moving.
So linked to that, Darren, in a busy, noisy, changing world, what do you do to ensure that your teams are focusing their energy on the right things? Because, I mean, clearly that, like you say, where your focus goes, your energy goes, very, very important. But how do you get that to be the right areas?
Yeah. I have a bit of a fixation, I will declare, a bit of a fixation on one pages. So my teams will know I talk about strategy on a page, actions listed on a page. And it's not because I'm completely mad, which I may be, but it is because I believe the art of condensing what you do into one page so that you're clear on what you're trying to achieve, what are the areas, the KPIs that you're going to look at, and most importantly, what are the focus areas? And I typically work in 3s and maximums of 5s. What are the focus areas? Not that it's everything that we'll do as a team, but what are the most important things that if we place our attention on and really commit to, give us the best chance of delivering the outcomes that we want. So, for many years, we look at strategies on a page, clear focus areas, action plans that follow that. And then part of my role is actually to make sure that we commit to that. I spend quite a lot of time working within that framework. If I'm outside of it, it's a censor check for me to say, hey, am I spending my time in the right area? Have we shifted? Or do we need to change and adapt? Going back to the first question, adapt where it is we're going and how we're going to get there. But it gives me that reference. It gives me that framework to work within, but then allows me to work with the teams and the teams to work with their teams within that as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting it's an interesting insight. And I guess it's a lot more challenging to get it on one page than it is to say, get it on one page. I'm guessing that's the real challenge, isn't it? It's being able to, distill it down into those 3 to 5 key areas.
It's the hardest thing, because when you look at most things, there's lots of things that we do. And you have to separate away the things that you do that are more routine-like and the most important things. The other key is actually, it's not just my 3 to 5 focus areas. Going through the steps that I go through, we build this as a team, and I really like this. It often feels like it's a bit slower at the beginning, but when it comes to execution, the speed up factor is enormous. If you can get the team to think with you, to align, to debate, to discuss, to argue, but eventually to settle on what is it we're trying to do, what are the things that we're going to measure, what are the focus areas, I do believe it gives you the foundation to drive meaningful change and give you a chance to really hit the execution challenge that we know is an even tougher one coming.
Yeah, no, that is about the leader's, I think, ability to invest that time. An old CEO of mine used to be really strong on debate, decide, do. So really have a proper debate and a conversation and get all of the disagreement and the tension dealt with, then make a firm decision. And then the belief was the implementation happened more because of that. But you have to go through that debate as he described it. Richard, at Durham Lane, you're obviously working on behalf of your clients a lot. So how do you ensure that your folks who are representing clients when they've outsourced to you have that kind of understanding and clear focus on what the client wants them to deliver?
Yeah, we talk a lot about partnership. I mean, everyone has their 3 Ps, don't they? We have our 3 Ps of partnership, people and process. Partnership in our world has to be a two-way street. So if we're signing up a new customer, a big red flag for us would be if they're outsourcing to get rid of a problem and not looking to engage. If you're not totally aligned, to Darren's point, it's very difficult to be successful. So I don't believe that we can be successful in delivering meaningful results for our customers unless we're truly integrated. So one of our drivers to every team is get on the org chart, whether it's formally or informally, usually the latter actually, but let's get on the org chart. And I think when you get there, then that's a sense that you've got that partnership in place. And we're very similar to Darren, just to sort of go back up a little bit. I'm a real fan of one-page plans, Darren. So one-page opportunity planners. Is it Winston Churchill who said, sorry, mother, for the length of this letter, I didn't have time to write a shorter one? Being concise is difficult. And for some reason, the simplest things are often the hardest. But I really see them paying dividends.
Yeah, it is a challenge. And I guess setting a clear strategy and creating clarity is a challenge. But perhaps, I guess many of our listeners would say executing that strategy is an even greater challenge. And you mentioned the importance of people's early involvement and time. In addition to that, or as well as that, what do you do to make sure implementation happens successfully for your folks at Xerox?
Yeah, I think, as you say, probably the toughest challenge in business is taking strategy through culture to execute, especially through change. I work with a notion of there's three cogs. You've got the task cog, be clear on what it is that you're going to go and do, be clear about your focus areas, be clear about what you're trying to do and get alignment. You've got a team cog, and then you've got a self cog, and they actually have some different dynamics in them. So the first one we've just talked about, my approach, again, just the way that we adopt here, one page, clear. The team one is about that alignment. I love your 3Ds, by the way. I may add my D, Darren's 3Ds, and steal that from you. I think that's great. But that getting alignment from your team, open to debate, ongoing discussions, an environment that's conducive to talk but do, focus and move, fail and change. And that environment around the team is really important. And then I also think that as a leader, we all have a role ourselves in this. And I talk about moments matters. There's moments when we're under pressure where how we react and what we do actually has a profound effect on the way things operate. So if I'm not prepared to commit to review those focus areas, then they're unlikely to happen because my self-conviction is not demonstrating the actions or the commitment that I want, as an example. And when we're in those reviews, if there's new ideas or challenges and we don't embrace that properly and listen, but decide and adapt and move, there's moments where I feel like as leaders we have to act and show that we are committed with the team to deliver the change and the outcomes that we want. But it is I think that execution thing is business's toughest challenge. It's relentless. The minute that your eyes go away from that, the focus shifts somewhere else. So it is a relentless focus, making sure your operational processes are lined up to deliver the areas that you want to focus on. And you have to trust and believe that the outcomes will become the outcomes. I always say you don't change the scoreboard by looking at the scoreboard. You have to play the game. And playing the game for me is in those focus areas. And that's where I put the execution focus.
Yeah, I think relentless focus sticks out as a phrase there. Maybe you do need to do a book, Darren. I think relentless focus, that will be a great title.
Darren, I love what you're talking about. It feels very familiar to me. It's sort of agile mindset. It feels very, very startup culture-ish, which I think is great. And I'd be interested to know how that fits in with an organization like Xerox, which is a huge global corporation. And I guess the follow-on is, has it been a challenge sort of changing mindset of a big corporate?
So two things. We're 23,000 people, $7 billion across hundreds of companies, 100 plus years old. So yes, it's always a challenge. I will say two things. One is, and by the way, we're also highly matrixed. So when I talk about teams, these aren't teams that people that are on my org chart. These are teams that we put together that actually are required to deliver the outcomes that we want. So often in my reviews, in my meetings, I've got people from other parts of the business, but actually, do you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you need to get the people in a matrix organization aligned to what it is that you want to deliver. And my experience is people don't care. As long as we can get the right inputs into the right areas, then you can move that. The one thing about we've been through different periods in 30 years. We've been through in the last 6-7 years a really exciting period. We changed our CEO. Carl Icahn took a position in our company. They brought in an incredible CEO, John Vincentino, unfortunately passed away. Really, really sad. But he and his team brought a focus on change and agility that shook us to our core. For me, in a great way, because it was all about ambition and purpose and focus and innovation and trying things. For me, the energy that produced was great. For many of my colleagues, by the way, it was a real problem who had been working in a different way. So organizationally, we're not all the same. We're not all the same, but it's an exciting time for us in our company. The pace and the expectation around change and the acceptance to know that we need to do it and try different things is it's probably the most exciting period I've been in 30-odd years.
Yeah, very good.
Wonderful. That's shaking to its core is a very powerful thing for an organisation to have. And obviously when a client outsources to you, what do you do to align to their organisation and make sure they get a consistent experience?
I love what Richard said, by the way, about getting on their org, and he means that, in all contexts, right? Just being part of their team. It's really, really important. Again, Richard also mentioned this. We talk about drivers. We have to understand the drivers of the business, where they're going, what they're trying to achieve that we're engaging with. We actually like to work hard to understand the drivers of the individuals that are most important to us. And we do that even before we try and get into what are the specific needs and requirements that they're looking at us to solve. Because actually, for me, success comes when you can show that you have a service or a solution to meet the requirements that they have, but connect that to the drivers that are informing how they feel and what they do in a business. And that emotional connection to drivers, I think, in many ways is the art of sales. It's the skill within many skills within sales that I think is most profound, the ability to meet the requirements and connect it in an emotional, passionate, energized way to something, whatever that something is, that's important to the organization and all the individuals that you're dealing with.
I mean, neuroscience shows us how powerful emotion is now. I mean, I guess we've always known it throughout human history, but now we've got the technology to show how important it is as part of customers, buying decisions, for example. And I think that's a really interesting concept of getting an emotional connection to those drivers. You're really harnessing some very powerful kind of motivation from that point of view. And Richard, how's that resonate for you from a Durham Lane perspective? Because obviously, like you say, you mentioned getting on the org chart and understanding those kind of drivers, I guess, using Darren's phraseology.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about the sort of chasm that exists between the worlds, or the connection between marketing and sales. And I describe Durham Lane as the middleware that connects the two together. You've got to understand the strategy. You've got to understand the drivers and where that client, your customer, wants to be headed. And then our job is to help enact that change and maybe connect the dots sometimes. And there are lots of things that we can do to support. And part of the challenge, I guess, is focusing on the right ones at the right time. But also, I think delivering back insight is really important. So we focus on typically 4 buckets of focus. I see it as inputs, outputs, outcomes, and insight. And that last one, insight, whilst everyone's interested in outcomes, obviously, I think the insight is so valuable, because whether someone says yes or says no, takes a meeting or doesn't take a meeting, is interested right now or maybe later, as a customer, I'd want to know why.
Just to shift topics slightly, Darren, Xerox is committed to helping, your customers determine what the future of work's going to look like. Be interested to kind of get your perspective. What's the future of work for sales and marketing professionals, in your opinion?
Whew, there's a $1 million question.
Just throw a little one in there.
No, we have to find ways in sales and marketing. We have to find ways of continuing to be relevant. I agree, through analytics and insight data is going to be crucial as we go forward, to make sure that we find ways of connecting to the most important things for our clients. But one of the things that we're grappling with right now is we've gone from a world where content and data was hard to get. I'm going back a few years. It isn't now. And actually, this world of marketing and sales being 2 separate domains, we're certainly challenging in Xerox now. The old paradigm of marketing does marketing, sales does sales, and you kind of get what you get, I think is a challenge. I don't know what the new word is that is there, but how do we now engage our clients in the right way, at the right time, with the right content, to get the sort of movement within the sales arena that we want is really important right now. By the way, sending lots of content isn't the answer. In the world of B2B, pure marketing campaigns, in my experience, haven't delivered. They're very different in B2C. By the way, we've just acquired a business called Go Inspire that has an incredible B2C marketing engine. data-driven, insight-driven. B2C, very different. But B2B, marketing on its own, in my humble opinion, hasn't really delivered. So there is a new thing. There's a new way that we've got to go and work, which will combine account management with the content, with some of the things that we've seen in marketing, and have a very joined up, deliberate engagement process that will combine the physical visits and phone calls with a very robust digital experience that we'll look at. And I'm looking at the moment with another company actually trying to think through. I think there's something powerful in the concepts of communities. Something around getting people talking with like-minded people. Not necessarily about your company, your products, but just creating community so we can really hear. We can really, really listen to what are the conversations that will then guide us to go and meet the problems that are really out there. So I think there's many facets to that. It's going to be fascinating over the next few years.
Yeah, it's also as well, I think the question, we often ask because it's such a hot topic for many of our listeners, sales and marketing. Another way to think about it is, why don't we think about what the customer wants at each stage of the journey or the process they're going through, and then work out, how we deliver that, rather than starting with those two traditional org, blocks that sit there. So it'll be fascinating, I think, to see how it goes forward and moves on.
Even better than the customer telling you what it is that they want is actually by provoking conversations with data and insight experiences, showing the customer what they could have. Yeah. Gets you in an even more powerful position to then go and do.
Yeah, because the customers, with the greatest of respect to our wonderful customers, they're normally head down inside their own organisations dealing with all of their own challenges. They often don't have the ability, do they, or the luxury to scan the market and consider and reflect. And so I think, bringing what could be to them is a powerful thing.
Yeah, and they're talking to companies like ours and the listeners because they want their expertise. Yeah. We need to provide that expertise in the right way. I mean, for Xerox, we're still known as a print company, yet in the UK, 60% of my business comes through digital services, not print. Yes. And we've been doing that for a while. So actually creating, and it goes back to the sales and marketing model. How do you create the conversations that you want? How do you create new expectations about where clients could go? And how do you back that up and get it to the client now in the modern world where we've got many, many, many choices?
So in a previous podcast, we talked to a guest and we came up with what I think is a great phrase. We're the sense makers and the storytellers. And, that's sort of, I think that encapsulates everything you've just talked about, is that we need to make sense of this ever-changing world for our customers to help them get to where they need to get to. But we also need to share stories that help paint the picture more clearly and shows them the roadmap. So I love that phrase.
Yeah, it's a wonderful episode. And Darryl, when I'm working with my clients on their sales performance, I use a little model, having the right mindset, skill set and tool set. And in our pre-interview, I mentioned that. And you said in response that you saw mindset as a skill. So that's a fascinating way of approaching it. So as a leader, how do you approach mindset?
Yeah, by the way, we talk about skill set, structures, and mindset. So very similar to it's a really good way of just analysing if things aren't going where you want, have you got the structures, skill sets, and mindset in the right place? Listen, mindset for me has always been, but is now better accepted as one of the great areas that will determine success or failure in performance, especially in a performance area that has pressure around it. And let's face it, business is full of pressure. Sports is full of pressure. Many businesses is full of pressure situations. So actually looking at mindset is critical. People ask me, are you born with a good mindset? Is it just methodical? And I say, I don't know, but it's where I do come back to, but I do know that it's a skill. And I like labeling it a skill because there's some rules about skill development. One is, if it's a skill, you should be able to lay out what it is that you do to help you improve your skill. The second bit and the most important thing is you can improve. And with focus and practice and feedback and coaching, skills can be developed. So my aim for me as a leader is I need to continue to develop my mindset skills, and part of that is helping the teams and the leaders in my business drive a very positive mindset to situations that we come again, especially when we feel pressure.
Do you call each other out on that?
Well, you call it out might be a bit harsh. We worked over 20 years with a company called Gaze in Performance and have a model that's red to blue. Do you know, it's one of the most empowering things that we've got. Blue is on task, mindset on task, you're on focus. And depending on the team or the situation, you start to describe what that is. In fact, the New Zealand All Blacks worked with them after not winning a World Cup for 2 World Cups on the trot with the best team by a long way, and started to get really focused on what was their blue side thoughts when they're under pressure, when the referee made a bad decision and the whole of the world seemed to be looking at them. What did they want to think? What was their mindset going to be? And could they do that consistently, individually and consistently as a team? So mindset, red to blue, and then red is diverted. We're humans, right? To think that we're all going to be in the zone, on task, all the words that you hear all of the time is impossible. We're human beings, and we have moments hundreds of times a day where our attention gets diverted. This model, though, allows you to recognize it. And once you recognize it, you empower yourself to make a decision that says, do I want to stay there, or do I want to make a decision to go back onto something that I really know is going to be more helpful to drive the outcome? So do we call it out? We talk about red to blue. We talk about, in fact, I'm training after this call. We're training 20 of our newer, younger people who've joined our business through Kickstart and a couple of others. One of the first programs we're taking through is red to blue, because I think it's powerful in the work context, but it's powerful for us as humans in life.
Yeah.
So call it out. We'll talk about red to blue. Sounds a bit red side. Are you okay? What do you want to do? How do we, our job as leaders is to help people at times move from red to blue. But it's once you recognize it and you empower yourself in a very profound way, actually, to make decisions on your own under pressure in the moment, which is the best bit.
Yeah, like you said, because pressure's not going to be going away anytime soon, right? In a modern, demanding, competitive business world. So I think building that resilience or the ability to deal with it, I think, will be the key skill, isn't it? And that's great to draw on models from outside of business sometimes that can absolutely help. Last kind of question, last penultimate question, actually. You mentioned that one of your challenges, and I think many of our listeners will identify this one, was expanding, your contact base in a customer. It'll often be, the typical 7 to 8 people that most people will have. But how do you get to the 50, 60, 70 people you'd really like to engage with elsewhere in the organisation because of all the opportunities that might bring for Xerox? So, and how are you going about tackling that challenge?
Yeah, this is a real topical one. We've got an incredible legacy base as being a managed print provider in some of the biggest names around the world, and that's an incredible legacy that we leverage. In that, we typically deal with certain parts of the business over the years, and we have deep relationships with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that have worked well. As I said, our company has changed and is changing rapidly. We're moving into, as I said already, moved into digital services. You'll hear us a lot more talking about software, other based services. We even do 3D metal printers that are on Navy ships. And so our challenge is how do we leverage the relationships that we've got, but not let it restrict us to go and navigate a much wider set of contacts in our clients. And one of those challenges is again back to our mindset, our belief that actually we don't want to work around these very loyal and fantastic contacts that we've got from our legacy business as we're looking to drive into the different conversations. When we're talking about outbound marketing campaigns and using data, the people that have been buying print really have nothing to do with that part of the business. So part of it is we've got to educate ourselves that we need to be very comfortable exploring much wider in organizations. The good news is the data around who is doing what is so much more available now in from different places. But then we get back to the question that Rich and I were talking about earlier is once you know who they are, how do you engage 50 people in an account. We've got 45 different services that we can go and provide. How do I choose which are the right ones for that account? And then how do I warm up 30 while I'm engaging 10? And I think that goes back to that conversation about there's got to be a new way that combines marketing, account management, sales, calling, that allows us to do all of this in the modern world. Have we got that figured out properly? No. But we're working hard on that, and where we do get wider contacts, we have better conversations. We get to know more about the clients, and it works. It's the way for sure. We just got to work out how to do it more often, consistently.
Yeah, you've just got such a fantastic legacy base, haven't you, that I guess people would chop their right arm off to have. And what a great opportunity to go looking for all those additional contacts. So, we wish you every possible success with that. And the very last question, Darren, we're building the Insider Spotify playlist, and we're asking every guest to include a song which we'll add to the playlist. It's, as you might imagine, we've had a very diverse group of guests, and therefore it's a very eclectic mix of music and artists from all sorts of genre. What song can we add to the playlist for you?
Oh my goodness! You did mention this, and I forgot to think about it. So you've talked. Symphony would be a song that I walk down the aisle with my now wife. So that would be it. That would have to be the song. But if you were to ask me which song would I sing along to or karaoke to, it would be an Elton John song. So I'll go with Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word or Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, one of those two.
Excellent.
Well, we did say to everybody which one song, but unfortunately Richard couldn't decide and had to put 4 songs on. So I think Richard has laid that we could probably add all of your choices, Darren, I think, add to the list, because Richard's broken ranks on us.
That's what it's like being a disruptor. What can I say?
So, Richard, in terms of closing thoughts from you, some fantastic conversation themes there. What are the standout ones for you?
Wow, where do I start? Darren, thank you so much on behalf of Simon, myself, and our listeners. I think that's been really, really insightful, and just for me personally, highly motivating in terms of your approach. Some key themes drawing out. We talked a lot about mindset. I think that's such an important, when we're training new Durham Laners coming to the business, we spend our time on mindset because it is I think the key that unlocks your success. I loved Simon's debate, Decide Do. We talk about moments mattering and planning. One-page planner is great, and planning is amazing, but then get on with it, which I think we've spoken about. Morphing sales and marketing together. That's a current and consistent theme on this podcast. I drew a little diagram of marketing, sales, and account management. It's something we call RevOps inside of Durham Lane, Darren, and you put the customer at the center of that and then have everything work towards that customer-centric approach. And then finally, I think you talked a little bit about communities and how you can build communities to help us better understand what our customers are challenged with, what they're thinking, what they're looking to do, what excites them. And that then can get fed back into our business. And from an insight point of view, we can use that to go back into our planning. And with the right mindset, we can drive all of that forward. So, yeah, loads to think about. I hope everyone's really enjoyed it, but I certainly have. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you very much. I think, Darren, I really liked your treat mindset as a skill set, because we know we can do something about skill set. And that's a great perspective. I know from all the research I've done into neuroscience that neuroplasticity, which is the ability of the brain to grow and adapt, remains constant throughout somebody's life. So that definitely, mindset can be definitely developed from a scientific point of view. The proof is kind of there. So I think which is great. So thank you very much. Thank you for all of your sharing your wisdom and of course your choices for the Insiders Spotify playlist. So thank you very much. So hope to all of our listeners, you've really benefited and enjoyed Darren's wisdom in this episode. Just invite you to subscribe to the Insiders podcast so you'll be notified of all the new episodes which come out on a regular basis, and also go and have a look at the previous episodes because we've had some fantastic guests and sharing some great insights and wisdom, and we hope all that will help you with your sales and marketing efforts. So thank you very much for listening in.
The Insiders by Durham Lane. Subscribe today to never miss an episode.